I think now is the right time to be installing the control rods into the Banshee. The top is nice and open, and we have great access to it. So threading them through, checking them, and building them up, etc. It's probably the easiest part of the installation to do this. So let's get cracking. As you can see, I've already got them installed in the bipe here. I shall, if I flip that over, I can show you that they are both connected to the control surfaces as well. Of course, our ailerons are already taken care of, and we've got the rods up here which control the tail feathers, which will be hooked up to the electronics when we come to install that. So let's put this to one side, and we'll grab the parts that are needed to assemble the control rods. As you've seen in the example there, we actually use some carbon fibre in creating the control rods, and that provides a much more stiffness than using the wires alone, which have quite a bit of flexibility to them. They're fine for short runs in our smaller 1/24 scale aircraft, but in the Banshee we need some nice precise control over the tail feathers. So we're going to make our carbon fibre control rods, our carbon fibre and piano wire control rods. Both are made in exactly the same way, although they are mirrors of each other, and you'll notice that they are slightly different, the control rods themselves. You've got one control rod where the Z bend at the end is in line with the U bend, the sort of adjustment point, and on the other one it's at right angles to it. So the right angle one is for elevator, and the inline is for rudder. So let's kick off with we've got the rudder first, and I've just noticed that's not quite in line, so we'll just give it a quick tweak. There we go. So I'm going to bring on the air ace for this, so we can I can show you how it all goes together. We're going to start at the back on the underside, and so that's rudder. So let's move this around slightly. So we need to put a few bends in this section of the wire, so it can go through the hole in the fuselage and go up the fuselage without dragging along and with friction. So we just need to make sure that we do this correctly with the right measurements. So essentially what I want to do is take a measurement from the end of the U there along the wire itself. That measurement is 30 millimeters. So what I'm going to do is, with my Sharpie marker, just measure that 30 and just mark it with the marker. I will mark my hand as well. I'm then going to go to 60, so another 30, and put a mark there too. So let's just put the lid back on the pen, and then I'm going to put a bend in. Now the U that you've got in the wire itself should actually be facing down on the aircraft. So I've got it facing up here because we've got the aircraft upside down. So when I put a bend in on my 30mm mark just there, I want to bend that inwards because it's going to go into the aircraft. So I'm going to bend it that way, and I'm only going to do it about probably 20 degrees, 25, something like that. So that should take us from our controls there into the fuselage, like so. And then my second mark, which was at 60, I'm going to bring the wire back in line with the direction that it was going in the first place. So there we go. So now, when I hold this up to the aircraft, you can see whereabouts it's going to lie within the aircraft. So I'm going to take another mark up here. I'm going to go another 30. I could have marked it when I marked the rest of them. I've gone to 90. So another 30 millimeters, there or thereabouts. And that's actually where I'm going to cut it off. So get the cutters on my pliers, put it to 30 there or thereabouts. Doesn't have to be absolutely accurate. And then just cut. And there we have our tail part of the rudder control. So now we're going to create the control for the servo up here, and in the Banshee air race we're actually going to be using individual servos. So the bend I put on there is slightly different. I'll just show you the. So the bend on the Banshee is a simple sort of over bent L that'll go through the onboard linear servos that are on the electronics board there, the all-in-one board, the AIO board. Whereas on the air race we're actually using rotary servos. You can see the holes for them there and there. And they are going to be going back and forth, and so we can put little Z bends onto our wire. So if I'll do an example for the Banshee pipe. So for the Banshee pipe, I would actually measure. There's my ruler. There it is. I would measure 7 millimeters and then put that overblown L shape in it, like so. And then I would measure down here 30 mil, all the threes, and then chop it off there. So that is the shape of the part that you want to create if you're making, if you are using the all-in-one receiver unit, brushless receiver unit in your Banshee. So regardless of whether it's a bike or an air race, that's what you want to create if you are installing your all-in-one unit with the onboard servos. So I'll just pop that over there. So once again, I'll show you on the model. So that's going to have the all-in-one unit in. But on this particular one, the air race, we are going to put a little Z bend in, and to do that I need some pretty nifty little pliers. So to put the Z bend in, we bend one way and we grip it as close to that bend as possible. Bend it the other way. There we go. So a little bit more. So there you can see I've put a Z bend into the end of that, and then I want to measure 30 millimeters along there. and then chop that off. There we go. So I now have my two parts out of the way, my two wire form parts to create my control rod, and all I need to do now is insert the tails of each of these into my carbon fibre control rod. Now that's a 1mm with a 0.5mm hole, and these pieces of wire here are 0.51mm in diameter. So firstly, what I want to do is just gently sand the ends of the wire to take any burr off. And the reason for doing this is to stop it, when we insert it, splitting the carbon fibre, which will very much weaken the friction between the carbon fibre and the rod itself. So, done that end, let's do the other end. It seems to have done the trick. So I'll insert the tail end wire form first. That should just be a matter of locating it in the end of the rod, and then it should just gently push in. So you can actually take that up to the first bend if you like. I'm just going to leave it a couple of millimeters there. What you can do at this point is secure it in position. So we don't want any adjustment this end. So I'm just pulling it out slightly. I'm going to put a little drop of CA glue on there, just at the junction between the two parts. And then I'm just going to push the rod, or the wire form, back into the rod, and then put a little excess there, which I'm just going to remove. Okay, so that's that done. This end, we're not going to glue at the moment, so we've got some adjustability. And when we come to install the servos, we'll actually need to take this part out, but we're putting it here essentially for safekeeping at the moment. So we'll just slide that in for now and leave it there. But the easiest way to install the servos is to actually pop this out, put the servo arm onto the Z bend, and then push it back into the carbon fibre rod. So there we go. I've actually got a slight bend in the end, so I'm just going to adjust that so it's straight. There we go. So now I can just install that into the aircraft to check whether it's accurate enough. Maybe we need to change some bends at the end there just to make it a little easier on ourselves. So I'm just inserting it into the hole in the fuselage, and then that should just neatly slide into the fuselage itself. You can see it coming, sliding back out. You can see it coming through there, through the fuselage. I'll just turn over, and then we can hook it up. So hooking these little control horns from the tail feathers is fairly straightforward, and fortunately the the control horns themselves are very flexible. So what you can do is, once you've got hold of your control rod, you can bend the control horn so that you can get that tip into it. There we go. So now that should provide us with our control for our rudder. Now that should be sitting on this right hand side, because that's where the servo will be working. Probably need just a little bit extra. There we go. Probably, just having a look as to whether it's touching anything. I think probably the bend at the end here is a little too aggressive. So what we'll do is pop the control rod out. Just see to that. I think it's probably a little too aggressive, and it would interfere with the other control rod if we were to leave it at that angle. So just, fortunately, I've left that little bit there so I can grip the wire, just pull it back a little bit, and then open this angle up a bit too. There we go. So as you can see, it's a lot shallower now. There, that's much better. And there's no friction, rubbing against anything. Fantastic. So exactly the same thing for the other side, except that we will be bending this in that direction, and once again the 30-30-30 rule applies. Let's do it all at once this time. So go backwards, 90, 60, 30. Okay. So I'll just double check, make sure the loop is facing up, which is down, and then grip at the 30, bend in, grip at the 60, bend out, and at the 90, remove. There we go. Then put our little Z bend in. So as I said, Z bend for rotary servos, L bend for the all-in-one receiver. So it to 30. Remove. Notice I held onto it while removing it so it didn't ping off and get eaten by the carpet monster. So let's once again file this down. So we don't split the carbon fibre. Then we can assemble the whole thing. That is a good tight fit. I don't think we're going to need any glue for that. So that's fine. Once again, I think probably my my angle up there is a little aggressive, so we'll just have a we'll just relax that slightly. Okay, let's just pop our servo end into the carbon fibre. Wow. Probably needs a little more sanding. So, I don't know whether my carbon fibre rod is so the carbon fibre tube was a little bit blocked, so I threaded through a slimmer wire, and then that's provided us with a little more slack there, so that's not as stiff anymore. So we'll be able to adjust that and then glue it in position with the CA glue, super glue. So let's just pop that into place. And then once again we can bend the control horn so we can get our wire through. There we go. Okay, so now we have the rudder, which should be sitting on the other side. There we go, like so. The rudder and elevator. Excellent. So I think with the elevator we just need to bend the end of it in slightly, as it seems to want to sit over onto the wrong side. So we'll just remove it. There we go. And we will just increase the angle at the junction with the carbon fibre. So probably way too much. That's a little better. So let's pop that back in. Now you do have two holes to choose from on the elevator and or also on the rudder control horns. Obviously, if you use the inner one, the control surfaces become more sensitive. So it just depends on your flying style and what you're trying to achieve with the aircraft. Depends on which hole you choose. But I would always recommend starting on the outer just to see how that feels. And then if you want a more active control, then obviously you can just swap over to the lower hole. So there we have our control rods installed. As I said, this one's for the using the electronics pack with the separate servos, but with the installation of the all-in-one unit, you just need to put the L bend in rather than the Z bend.